So today we're covering a subject close to my heart, literally close to my heart. It's just happened a couple of seconds ago. So I need these beautiful people here. So we're talking about emotional hijacking, okay? Happens to all of us, to the best of us at all different times. We have Amy with us today. Amy's a therapist as well, and Helen's a therapist. So three of us are therapists basically, and we work I want to say similar but different ways. Well, whatever. But we look, if I didn't trust these beautiful ladies, I wouldn't be talking to them right now. But I know through their work that they do with clients, they see clients one-to-one, and we do a lot of work where we communicate with each other. I know that they can assist us on this, and I'm hearing it loud and clear through my team of guides here right now, as you know, because I'm obviously working with my soul, as in my guides, helping my soul as well. So I call these beautiful ladies my soul sisters, but they're not just my soul sisters, they're the world's soul sisters. So we're looking at emotional hijack. So hello, ladies.
Hello, darling.
Yeah. Okay, so we all work with clients, and I know we've all got things going on in our personal lives as well around emotional hijacking. I want to look at what that actually means for people, emotional hijacking. So you know, it was funny. I Googled this beforehand, and I was like, well, I know what emotional hijacking is, right? And like, I needed to be told. So they sort of gave me just something that just happened to me. I'm like, yeah, I've got it. I understand what emotional hijacking.
Oh, that's why that happened, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
That is exactly. So yeah, I totally put it out there, moving out of a covert narcissist relationship, and something's just happened about the property, and he's had a word in, and whatever, the property's been put on hold again. So it's like gently trying to come out of my relationship and thinking I'm nearly there, and then it gets snapped back in like an elastic band. It's all fine. So what happened, I mean, I was reading, I've made some notes here about what happens to the physical body when you have an emotional hijack. You know, it's very much doing amygdala, what's it called? Amygdala, that's it. See, can't think. Can't think. And that's exactly what happens to the brain. That's it, right?
Yeah, blood rushes to your feet, so you can run if you need to.
Yeah.
But don't run right now.
I'm sitting here right now, but very much about the cortisol and adrenaline level. And I feel like I've had I don't drink caffeine, and I feel like I've got caffeine racing through my body right now. But when that happens, obviously processing in your neocortex in your brain and how it works, it's very hard to work through and sort of understand what's going on. Now, for me, literally this minute, you know, with my ex-partner and trying to get out of this situation with him being a covert narcissist, he's just, you know, done what he's done. And emotionally, it's like I feel trapped for a second. I'm like, I need to get out of here. So I'm going through this process as I'm talking to you. And I'm like, I've got my chocolate, I've got my water, I'll be fine. I've got my lovely, beautiful soul sisters. So it is a chemical reaction in the body to emotions and feelings that are happening. And the emotions and feelings that are happening are a lot from the past or experiences that have happened to us that we feel maybe we're out of control or we need to run or whatever. So I know in this situation, trying to escape my partner, you know, feeling I've been pulled and dragged into this situation, but we all have it for many different reasons, you know, relationships. I mean, I had another thing about another relationship this morning, but it's not about me. And it could be about relationships. It could be about money. It could be about work. It could be anything that's going on for you individually. So ladies, does that make sense at the moment? Are you with me? Are you on board and you know what's happening?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I think it's relatable, as you say, to everybody, whether you're a therapist or not. It's just when you're a therapist, you obviously are trained and you've got a little bit more awareness around it. But for me, there seems to be two types of hijacks. So there's the one that's just happened to you, which is obviously an immediate, almost like a trigger of something. And then there's those ones that, or maybe they're the same, but for me, they feel different. There's the ones that hijack that part of you, an unconscious part of you from when you were way back when. So you have a disproportionate reaction to something. For example, I'll give you an example from me actually. I had a huge dental phobia and I was petrified about going to the dentist, and I did some work around it. This is when I saw my therapist actually. And it turned out that when we did some unconscious uncovering about it, I was running a story from my 5-year-old self. And basically my mother's lingo to me at that age was the dentist's a butcher. Oh, I've got to go and see that awful butcher again. And so my 5-year-old self went, and that went down in my brain file. And so, you know, come however many years later, every time I'm thinking I must go to the dentist, up comes that, you know, protective 5-year-old.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because I always see it like the old filing cabinet, the old system that we have that keeps all your files in. And then Jolly's like, oh, we need to keep her safe for whatever reason it is. Right. We need to keep her safe because this happened at that point. Let's go through her filing system. This is how she felt when she was 5 years old. Let's do it. And you mentioned a brilliant point. We are, us three, are therapists, right? And some people don't think, I mean, it has been said to me that they don't realize that we have issues too. Of course we have issues.
We're human. We're still having this human experience for whatever crazy reason.
Absolutely. I feel like as a therapist, I'm more aware of the issues I've got, so I can't hide from them. It's just like, can't hide. They're just
like
there.
Right there. Like, oh, yeah. God, I can see it and everything.
Yeah.
And it's the over-analyzing or overthinking. I'm like, shit, I know this. I'm a therapist. I mean, that happened to me this morning about someone. I was like, shit, I'm a therapist. I know this. What is wrong with me? And I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with you, Anne. This is obviously because you need to learn this reasoning, this teaching. And then I went into the spiritual side where my guides came in and they sort of said to me, and this is another lesson from the universe. I'm like, well, thank you very much. I could do with a day off. Thank you. So it's exactly it. It really
But
is.
also, we do also sometimes need, well, of course we need support dealing with our own stuff as well. But you kind of, when you have your own hijacks, you pretty much recognize them, but it's like, can I clear it out myself, or do I need a bit of extra help? Which is why it's so nice having a whole bunch of people that we know that are therapists.
Absolutely I am with that. Actually, I had a one that I worked through myself recently. Okay, so it was a really interesting situation. Like, I was in a park and I saw a woman that was really, really distressed, and there was this guy sitting with her, and obviously he was being abusive towards her. And I've sort of walked around just because it goes in a circle. I've walked around to just kind of see it, and everything in me just started to kick off. Wow. Everything, that same bodily reaction to when I was in abusive situations. And I'm going around and I'm thinking, okay, but I need to do something different. So at the same time, my wisdom's coming up and going, no, Amy, you're not in danger though.
Yeah.
You need to do something different in this situation, right? So it was like talking myself through it in the moment and going, what do you believe is going to happen, Amy? You're safe. You've got this. So I stepped into the situation.
Wow.
And I was like, are you okay? And then he just started swearing at me, and I could feel everything in my body wanting to have that fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. Everything's kicking off like it used to. Everything. I'm sweating, I'm shaking, my insides are just like, and then it's just me talking to myself. It's breathe, Amy, breathe. Like, he can't hurt you. This is not going to happen again. You're okay. You've got this. And it was like coming out of that situation and really being able to see myself in it and witness myself doing something different that broke it for me.
Yeah. I think, you know, if I look at this morning, something had happened to me, it's like literally, so I've started dating and literally the person yesterday, I like the eyebrows, Amy, and literally last night, this person didn't message me till late in the evening. It was about, you know, he said good morning on text message, right? So tick, you know, apparently that's supposed to be a good thing. And I'm like, well, why wouldn't he? Myself, I can't understand it. But, you know, people are saying to me, no, it's a good thing. He messaged you in the mornings. He says, good morning. During the day, he sends me odd text message and sort of saying, hi, thinking of you. And I'm like, okay, tick, that's another box, but why wouldn't he? I don't understand that. But people are saying, well, that's nice because some guys don't do that. And then last night, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, I've had a bit of a shitty day. And do you know what? I would love to hear him talking to me now or phoning me. Now, the night before, maybe I'm just too demanding, I don't know, but I'll get there. So also, you know, the night before, he'd spoken to me for 2 hours on the phone and we're talking. It was lovely and I was hearing his voice and everything else. But last night, I needed a call from him and I get a text message at 9:45 saying, hi, thinking of you, but I'm still working and I'm really working hard. And I'm like, this ain't about, are you okay? This is about you offloading onto me. And I'm like, no, that ain't no good. So I looked at the text message and I was like, I'm not really in the mood to answer your text message. I just left it to one side and I was sitting there and I was boiling up. I was going, this is not what I've entered into. I've had this for 32 years where somebody's put me last and hasn't put me first. And I started boiling up. And I was like, what is wrong with me? So there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that I noticed now that I want and deserve something better. So I go to bed and I'm getting ready and he's still sending me all his text messages and he says something and he was like, and I was like, you're really triggering the fuck out of me now. So I'm not going to talk to you. Now this man is on the other end of the phone. He doesn't know what's happening.
Right.
I'm combusting on this side, Helen, I can tell you. I'm just like, I'm going mad. And then I had to sit with it and think, okay, what is going on? What is this showing me right now? Because that is another tip. It's just like when you get emotionally triggered and it's like disproportionate for like, you know, what's going on, is to look at it like, what's this showing me? What's going on? And I was sitting with it and I was like, breathing into it. And I was like, I feel really uncomfortable. And I was like, hang on, I know what this is about. This is that 32-year long relationship that I had with a covert narcissist who put me last on his list. I was last before the company. I was last before his family. I was last before everything. And I made do thinking that I didn't have a voice. I didn't value myself because I didn't realize my value at all. And then so he sent a message and bless him, I put my phone onto flight mode and do not disturb because I was like, I can't handle this right now. I need to take time out, some space, which again is another technique to use. So this morning I woke up and my phone is all these messages. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I was like, oh my God, the poor thing. And I started feeling sorry for him. And I was like, well, then is disempowerment. It's like me thinking it's about him when, do you know what I mean? I needed to get a balance. So this morning I sat with it and I was like, okay, I know what happened. I was feeling quite sensitive yesterday. I was very tired. There was stuff going on for me. It would have been nice if I'd had somebody I could offload onto as well, which he tried to, and I got, defensive about it. And I needed to take some time out. So taking the evening out, not going and attacking him or whatever, which helped. And then this morning I was like walking around the house thinking about, what do I do? And in the past, I would have held back. I would have thought about this other person's feelings are more important than mine, and I'd put them first. And instead what happened is I was checking in. So I do a lot of my meditation, as you girls know, and I was sitting there talking to my guys and I was like, I need a clearer picture of what's going on here. And I was feeling uncomfortable. And what I was hearing is that you've up-leveled. I've up-leveled. So I've upgraded my energy in a sense that before it would have been okay for me. Now it's like, actually, I know I value myself more, and I know I want more. So why would I want to be putting myself back into that similar situation? So in my mind, I was going through it and talking to my guides, and it was like, it would be more now uncomfortable to not have a conversation with the other person and say to me, it's a very new relationship, by not telling him how I'm feeling would be actually a disservice to him, because we as a soul has been brought together because we're going to mirror something to each other, so we both learn, so we can reflect back. So
and don't forget also, just to interrupt, that everything that was going on in your mind and body the night before, it was all your story, because he didn't have chance to step in and say, oh, okay, that's what you need, or it was a one-sided thing, because we know that people aren't mind readers. I won't say men because that's generalizing, but we know. Well, I mean, it's the same in any relationship, right? We sort of get huffy to a degree, or we can get huffy when we get hijacked or triggered, and we're expecting the person opposite us to know exactly what's going on. But as humans, we have to get to the point where we can step into that. This is how I feel, or this is what I need, and I hope that you can be part of that. And if you can't, then
well, that's it exactly. That is it exactly, because it was like, well, obviously, if I think of how I started this, I've been hijacked a few moments ago by my ex-partner. And for me, at the moment, my sensitive part is the relationships. And I'm moving into that field where I'm stepping out of a relationship and I'm stepping into something new, which I don't know what that is at this moment. And it's formulating. And of course, there is an issue there that needs to still be looked at. So by me taking some time out and to sit with it, and it was very much like, no, actually, I value myself more now. And before Amy's like, high five.
Yes. Yes.
I think, and that for me, this is what I've been told from my guides. This is what it's showing me, is that, and you're valuing yourself more. And that uncomfortable feeling that I'm feeling right now is literally because I cannot exist in the old Anne with the old emotions that she once had, that she's moving into the new now herself. And that's why it's feeling uncomfortable, because it's like saying, hello, red flags. No, sorry. I need to speak to you and to explain something to you. So I'm going to speak to him and sort of say to him, look, listen, this is what I had before. This is where I'm at right now. If you don't have time to, message me or speak to me during the day for 5 minutes, not 2 hours, 5 minutes, then obviously it's not meant to be at this time, but it's really for me to step up, to feel into that, for me to say, I feel comfortable enough to say to you right now that I was a little bit, I actually did leave him a voice note sort of saying to him, I was a little bit sensitive last night. There's a little things going on. We need to have a conversation. And it will come up by saying, look, hey, you triggered the fuck out of me, basically.
I love how you coughed and then said it anyway.
Well, for a minute there.
I'm on the verge. Shall I say it? Shall I not say it?
Oh,
just to make sure that other person's aware, because as I say, I feel, and I was sitting with my guides, the universe has brought us together as a reflection, a mirror to show us something. And I think he needs to hear this as much as me. So whatever is going on for us, it's showing us how far we've come, like what you were saying, Amy, with your situation.
Obviously, when you've changed and you've up leveled, obviously, then your response to things is, as I think, as Amy was saying, you can sort of look at it from more of an outsider's point of view, looking in, so you're disassociated from it, and you can look at it differently and still be aware of what's coming up, but actually be able to recognize that that's perhaps an old story, or that's the old you.
Absolutely. For me, I think the key to it for me, and the biggest thing that came out of my reflection on it, was the thing that's changed the most is my relationship with me. And that
the one to have, isn't it?
Yeah, like creating that container of love. So rather than, because what used to happen with the emotional hijacking is that I would then tell myself off as well. I would use the same method that like was used when I was a child, and it'd be like, oh, for God's sake, Amy, what's wrong with you? Put it together. Why can't you be stronger? And as I've changed the container, the holding container, to love, it's kind of, I approach it very differently. I'm embracing myself and going, it's okay. So I'm providing the soothing that I needed then that I never got.
Being a child,
it helps me. Yeah, so it really helps me to go, no, it's okay. I've got you. I'm holding you. I've got your back. Trust yourself. And it's that level of being able to trust myself as well, because I think in those situations before, I didn't even trust myself to hold myself. And then I'd be in this kind of fight, flight, freeze kind of thing, and it'd be like, oh my God, how do I get out of this? So it's that the way I'm treating myself in those situations is the thing that's most different.
Yeah, you're treating yourself with respect now.
Yeah, like I matter.
And you matter.
Of course you matter.
Yeah.
But don't forget as well, we live in a society where so many of us, again generalizing, but we're always reaching outside of ourselves for the answers. And actually the power is obviously taking that moment to stop and go, you're okay. How am I feeling? What do I need? Where am I at? What's coming up? As opposed to going, oh, I just feel like shit. Where can I go? What can I do? What can I eat? What can I drink? What, all of those things. That
everything seems so instant now. So instantly we can get anything we want. But I think also, I mean, looking at this with different clients, if you've come from abusive, family, and a toxic family, sometimes you get caught up in that's still playing out for you. As an adult, you've moved out from that toxic family. The toxicity can still carry forward, but you don't realize that. There's certain members of my family that, if I speak to them, I always check in with my energy, and I know like certain people, I start talking to them, and then during the conversation already I'm like feeling a bit depleted. I'm like, oh my God, and they're telling me how I should be thinking or feeling. And again, it's like, don't talk to me that way, but I can't say it to them, because respectfully, I respect this is how they feel, they think. But in families, we can't escape them to some degree, but I just sort of say in my head, respectfully, okay, they have their opinion. This is how I feel now. I'm different. I mean, I will put it out there. This is like my mum, obviously, stuff that she's been programmed from her family situation, all the toxic abuse that she's had in her family. And it's like how she sees women. And there's other times that she's like, high five you, Anne. You go on Tinder and chat to those 3 or 4 guys. I think it's a good thing. And then another day she's like, I don't think you should be doing this right now. And you're like, what? Or what type of mother are you? Like, hey, hang on, my kids are 28 and 26 right now. So there's different family members we have that can sometimes, they gaslight you and they just chuck their shit on you, and you're like, oh my God. And I think that's the thing. It's like, I think this is all that personal growth, it's all that soul work, and it's like stepping back just to process it sometimes. Yeah.
Well, and I think the old adage is very true, that when you've done all the work, or when you've done all the work, you've never done all the work, but when you've done a lot of work, and if you think you're at a space where you're more enlightened, go and hang out with your family for a weekend and then see how bloody enlightened you are afterwards.
Yeah.
So true, because our families are our biggest mirrors, reflections and triggers, aren't they? Let's face it.
Well, they really are. You're right. It's like the soul pods, aren't they? That's why they come forward.
Yeah, of course. Not intentionally. Well, I mean, obviously intentionally when we come down, but or in, whichever way. But yeah.
And then we then go on, whatever role we are playing, you know, whether we've got children or we've got other people around us, whatever, that we then can go on, either we can break the cycle if we are aware of it and recognize it, or we can repeat it too. And I openly admit, I think when my children were younger, as teenagers, I think I repeat the same cycle to some degree that my mum had done to me. I think, you know, listening to the children, it's like, oh, okay, I need to stop. And I think that's what happens, like when we're going through things, you know, now, like we bounce stuff off each other, you know, we're friends and also other people that we know in our life. It's great to have this where we can bounce stuff off to some degree. Do you know what I mean? To look at that sort of thing, what's going on.
Yeah.
But I also know that, you know, so for me, that's what's going on for me right now. But I also know there's other people have lots of other stuff going on right now as well in their lives. So I want to look at some of the areas where we could get emotionally triggered. Okay, what could be going on? So, you know, I've looked at relationships is my big one at this moment. But I know there's also about work, there's also about money, there's also about families. Is there anything else that you guys can think of where you get emotionally triggered or what's going on? I mean, Amy, you'd mentioned about what you saw recently, you know, you saw that.
Yeah, like for me, it's a massive, I find it, so when I was thinking about it, I find it where any conversation, so I've had to make some difficult conversations recently, and I get caught straight in that response before, like while I'm waiting for the phone call, I can feel the triggered response in me. Like I can feel my heart going, I can feel that wanting to run away from it. And I get stuck in this thought loop of this is how it's going to play out because this is how it's played out before. And I'm just there and I'm just like, what the fuck are you doing, Amy? Like, you know that this is not how it's going to be. You're an adult and you're okay. But because I've had so many confrontational conversations in my life where, like with my mom, she would just switch. So I was like hyper vigilant all of the time. So I'm really aware that in any conversation, anyone might just flip. So when I've had these conversations of late, when I'm phoning people up and I'm having these conversations, I'm going through that process every single time. And I very, very lovingly have to talk to myself and ground myself and go, it's okay. You're not that kid, Amy. You're not that child. You can take care of you. Yeah.
And also your response to, interestingly, your response to somebody flipping, if they did, which they probably wouldn't, but even if they did, you would handle it from the adult now.
Yeah.
Because you're not that kid anymore, like you say.
Yeah, but it feels so real. And that's the thing, right? That's where people get caught up, is it just feels so real. It feels like it's happening in the now. And that moment, I think there's like a 6 seconds that takes the chemicals to dissipate, right? That's 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Where if I can just sit with it rather than react, then I've got it.
I think that's the secret, isn't it? Because, you know, what you were saying, I mean, I read that as well about the 6 seconds, and that's why they sort of say, breathe, remove yourself from that situation, walk away, you know, take some time out, you know, try to go somewhere or some place, or think of some happy thoughts or positive thoughts and stuff like that. But very difficult when you're thinking like that to some degree. You know, with the adrenaline, the cortisol running through your body. I mean, I know the act of physical stuff, so I know I go for a walk because that's, you know, really get rid of all the chemicals and that. But as you were saying, when when you're getting triggered and stuff, it's very much like, you know, I mean, I'm just hearing from my guys now, it's very much like that younger part of ourselves. It's not just the chemicals, it's the emotions that are running through your veins and your body. This is not just that, you know, disassociating yourself from it. It's like your physical self is feeling it. You know, I had post-traumatic stress from an accident, you know, when the car knocked me down about 20-something years ago now. And every time I crossed the road, if a car went past me, I thought it was replaying from that post-traumatic stress of me getting knocked down again. Now I know if I get really stressed, everything as well, this is another thing, when we get really stressed in life and we get a bit anxious about it might be one thing that's happening in our life at this moment, but it starts escalating. It reminds me of like the old westerns where you saw the bush roll things that are rolling through. It's like gathers and it collects all the other shit that you got going on in your life. It holds on to it, and then it's then no longer that one thing that's affecting you, like the boiler's broken down or something. Then
it's everything.
It's everything. Your world's crumbling around you. It brings it all together because the emotions are running through your veins now, because we are emotional beings. We are being in this moment. It's really hard, isn't it? So that was the most important thing about bringing this up. It's like trying to look at tips to help you, you know, chocolate is a good one for me as well.
Yeah. Chew the chocolate for 6 seconds.
But that's it. Yeah.
Oh,
that's it. It's the peppermint tea and the chocolate for 6 seconds. And I'm like, the world is good. I can cope with it now.
Well, interestingly as well, if you do that a lot, if you have a triggered response to some things, it becomes an anchor, doesn't it?
Yes.
Right? When you do it, you're like, oh, okay, I feel better.
Yeah. And I love that what you've just said, because when we were doing it, I was thinking, and we trained in cognitive hypnotherapy. I don't know, is Amy, I'm not sure if you've done that or not, I'm not sure, but it was like when we anchor something into our system, it sort of reinforces the positive whatever. And that's right, it's sort of anchoring that whatever it is, I mean, that's far better than me going to the shops and getting my credit card. That was what I used to do. Because I learned a bit of chocolate goes a long way.
Yeah.
Not cheaper as well.
Yeah, probably.
It's a lot cheaper, because otherwise I'll go down the debt route, which is another area for me that years ago, I got into 25 grand worth of debt, and that was because of the children and living in the situation I was living in. And I was getting, the card came out in the sense of the kids did need clothes, he wouldn't pay for them, or there was times when I was so upset the way he was treating me or the children, I'd go out and buy them something. So then debt becomes a big one. So that's, I have a lot with that, a few clients that have got issues around debt at the moment, or money situations. So it is that one little thing that can trigger, escalate and move off into another area, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you're dealing with essentially more than what the actual trigger problem is. You're then dealing with a whole other situation, which is potentially debt, or I don't know, issues around alcohol or overeating or whatever. So it sort of spirals if you're not careful.
You're so right, because I mean, I've joked about this often on a few Instagram or YouTube stuff where I said about, I'd gone to Fulton and Mason, and for Fulton and Mason in London for me represented something else. But the chocolate, I mean, I would easily spend a couple of £100 on chocolate just because how it made me feel. And I didn't realize actually it was addictive behavior, and it was abusive behavior towards myself because of what I did. So, and if anything, it's like, I think all of us that we're sitting here, what I love about you both is that we also live our life. It's just not out of a book. We've lived life. We've had situations happen for us, to us, but we've had situations. So we walk in other people's shoes as well to some degree. It's not just we've read it in a book and we've become therapists. It's more than that. We live it, and daily we are living our own story every single day as well.
Yes, because the money one, that's going on for me at the moment. And it's massive. Yeah. And it's like, it pulls from my childhood, it pulls from other people, and it's like, oh my God, it's so shameful. I'm a terrible human to be in this situation. And it's just pulling from every story, from every angle, and I can sit there and I can get lost in that spiral. And it's just like a spiral. Yeah. So it is very, very real. We are humans. we're as well. Some things going souls as well. Yes to the souls, but yeah, it's the humanness. Because we live in this society, and there's so much input on things like that, how it should look, how it must look, you're not good enough if, and all those things can so play into people's heads. And yeah, I've got so much support around me, and I'm so grateful for that. But when I didn't, I was just stuck in my head. Like, it was awful. The spiral was awful. So for me, that trust, that support, that connection to somebody is really, really useful. It really, really helps.
I think that's the biggest one, is the support, and knowing that you're not alone with this. And I think so many people out there feel alone and isolated because of either shame from something, don't want to admit something, or, I know some therapists that say, well, I'm a therapist, I should know better. I mean, we all say that jokingly as therapists, but, we're, as you said, we are the human being, we are being in this moment. And I think from the soul perspective, our souls are within this vessel, and, the communication with ourselves, and we need to experience these human feelings and senses because our soul is learning, our soul signed up for this particular life. But we also have some choices as well, how we see or what's going on. And it is that story which we are feeding and we're telling ourselves, I think that's, we know this as therapists, it's a story we're telling ourselves about our situations, about what's going on, isn't it?
But the great thing about story is that we can change it.
Yes.
That's it.
That's essentially, I mean, we all have our stories, and often they can be learnt stories, and often they're stories we've created. And it's being aware of our stories, I think, to be able to bring them up to the surface and go, right, are you real, or are you just something that, you know, I'm making up, and I'm actually just making my life exhausting because of it. Yeah. I mean, you know, obviously some things are going to be real, but, you know, sometimes it just gets a little bit exaggerated in the story.
Absolutely. But that point of drama as well, that's an interesting thing, because I was so caught up in that drama, it was weird if I didn't feel it.
Right.
So there was almost a point where like things stopped. Like when I came out of my really abusive relationship, it was really, there was moments where it was kind of like, nothing's happening and this feels really weird because I'm not used to this. I'm not used to feeling like this. Like this is, I don't know what life looks like when it's just like ticking along. There needs to be the drama, because I was so used to being in those feelings and feeling that sense of triggeredness. That felt so normal. That just was my normal life.
I do you know what? I hear you loud and clear. I mean, my stepdad was very abusive and we had domestic violence. And it was like when he finally left and I wasn't getting hit, it was like, I'm waiting for that moment to get hit. The whole body's reacting, the whole body's responding like, oh, and you were saying so about in the park when you saw that situation. I'm very similar. I was, you know, if I'm out and about or I see a child being kicked or an animal being, you know, brutalized and stuff like that, I automatically go up and stop that. I mean, I saw this past my house, I think it was last year, a woman was dragging her 2-year-old, and into the end, I just like, I've got to go out, I've got to stop, I've got to say something. I went out and then I calmly said something stopped for a moment, because I was in the shoes of the child, what had happened to me. I stopped and I looked at her, and then I was like, oh my God, but I can identify with you because I had postnatal depression with my children. Wow. So it was a real turnaround. I was like, whoa, I was having all these different emotions from everywhere. So something slightly different, but it's our body, you know, when we're going through trauma, you know, whatever stage of our life or whatever we've been through, if you've gone through some sort of trauma, your body really, it holds it as a container. It's like, and then when you see something, you identify it, like, and it sort of triggers it off. But the therapist of me kicked in, and I was like, wow, on that day when it happened, I was like, I can totally understand this woman, where she's coming from. I didn't do that with my children, but I looking at her face, and she burst into tears and she said, it's all too much for me. And I was like, wow. So our body contains it, holds on. And anything that we're in lack of, I just heard them say, when you're in lack of something that's happening for you at any particular moment, I mean, that again can trigger stuff off as well. You know, feeling fearful, scared, you know, reverting back to that child. You know, with me, the house is being sold, and, you know, it's like, I don't know where I'm going to end up, you know, and it goes back to me as a child being pulled from refuge to refuge with my mum back in the day. So it's that insecurity of feeling, my feet are feeling like they're on quicksand at the moment, but I've got to remember that was my younger part of myself that felt like that then. But Anne, I was sitting there last night, I was like, Anne is the woman now. She's 53 years old. She's financially independent. She now is stepping into those shoes as who she's meant to be. She's got this. And I had to keep reminding myself of, now, like we said about the story, where we play in the story, what part, what chapter are we in? And I sat there last night, I was like, no, this is rewrite. This is like rewriting. This is looking at the next new chapter to come. And it's that feeling of not sure what's to come, but I just need to be in that and just to keep all avenues open, to allow it to step forward, sort of thing. That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think there's so much power in spending a little bit of time with our younger selves. We know that. We know how huge that is, because we're forever healing, aren't we, essentially? So it's great to go back and just be like, you're okay, you've got this, you know, you're here today as that mature woman, and that younger you survives. So yes, I can go back and sit on the swings now and just, you know, bring my inner child out to play and do all of those things. And then, you know, to be in the now moment, human being, not human doing, to be able to then step into the next phase.
I absolutely love that, to be with that inner child that needs nurturing at some point. And you mentioned something as well, Amy, about that, to take those moments when we are being triggered. Where's it coming from? Let's sit with ourselves. If it's that inner child, if it's part of that shadow work we need to look at, let's sit with ourselves. Let's give nurturing to that individual. You know, if you've, wherever our pasts are, you know, times when I've had the abuse when I was a child, that that child who was sat in the corner and curled up and cried, now I can go back and actually, as a mother myself, I can go back to reassure her and to help her to move forward. I think that's so important. I think we all do that to some degree in some of our therapy, we do with our clients. We work with that a hell of a lot, don't we?
Absolutely. I think it's completely important to kind of understand and give that, because for me it's about giving myself the love and understanding that I never got.
Like the self-nurture, isn't it?
Really. And it's been such a long journey, because it's gone from self-loathing. It's been such a long journey to it. But the difference it makes to shine that light of love and understanding on myself is a massive thing. Because one of my biggest issues was the fact that I was always searching for that outside of myself, but never giving it to myself. So even if people did show it to me, I didn't believe it. So I had to show it to myself in the first instance. To be able to really accept it and go, no, you are lovable. You are lovable.
It's that undeserving, because if different backgrounds, we can feel we're undeserving of something because we've been told it a number of times. So we start to believe we're undeserving. You're a naughty child, you're a stupid child, whatever it is, any of the wording that's been given to you, chucked at you, verbalized since you was a child or whatever, and constantly hearing that, or even in relationships, how someone might treat you in a certain way. When you keep feeding that into your own system, it's like, oh my God, I must be this, I must be that. And then you have to get to that point where it's like, now I am deserving. So it sounds like that when you get to that point when you feel that you are deserving, it can be still sensitive and feel quite vulnerable, but it's now, I am deserving of this, I deserve something more. I think with all of us with different situations that, for me, I am deserving of having my own home. I am deserving of stepping out of this old covert narcissist relationship. I am deserving of stepping into a new relationship. I am deserving that this new person that's come into my life, however long this person's meant to be, it might be just one more day, who knows? But I am deserving to say to him, look, listen, this is how I want to be treated. I want to be valued. If you can't see that, then that's fine. You just step aside and next. But you know what I mean? It's like, what are you deserving of? I think it's important.
Absolutely. I feel completely deserving of finally committing to myself and my life and my dreams and my joy. Finally.
How amazing is that?
Amy, just asking you, sorry, they've gone off piece. So what is it then, your dreams? Like you said, you're deserving of your dreams and stepping into it. What do you see your dreams? What are they?
My dreams, the first thing that always comes to me is service with love. Like that for me is my biggest thing. Like running these programs, these group programs that are really empowering and transformational for women and showing them what is possible, creating that possibility. And having a life of freedom. And when I say freedom, I don't want an alarm. That's one of my dreams, is to be able to switch off my alarm and just wake up every single day because it interrupts me when the alarm rings. To live near water is one of my dreams. But in reality, the dream is to create a world that is loving and has my soul family around me. And I'm in a loving space because I have spent 45 years not being in that space.
I love that. And I think that's what our life shows us. We get to a stage, you sit and you're like, well, what is it now that my dream looks like? What is it I want to do? How do I want to move forward? And that's the whole reason, creating, I want to create this platform, as in bringing therapists and other practitioners together where we can offer to serve others as well, because we've been on part of that journey and we're trained and we want to help others to have a more understanding of what makes you tick, what are you deserving of, and that can only increase the value of the humanity and value of what people think of each other and our interaction with each other. I think that's been missing for such a long time, and can create communities where we start talking to each other more and to find out our stories. That's sort of my dream, and to have my own house by the sea, of course.
Well, I also think as well, like it's the whole awareness around it as well. Once you become aware of the things that are holding you back and the triggers and all of that, and you start doing the shadow work and you work through it, you become lighter. And so as you become lighter, you become more in alignment, and then you're attracting more more of that stuff into you, in for you, everything that you want. But it's hard to do that if you're like wading through treacle and just kind of trying to push on without clearing out the dead wood first, I always feel.
I think you're spot on, and I think this is the whole aim of this, and moving forward into what's to come. I think, you know, creating the idea of creating some projects and some courses and some workshops to help people to move out of what's held them back, looking at their journey and how we can help to move individuals forward. And it is about doing the work, and the work is so valuable and so important for yourselves individually. And you know, as we said this before, that when we're in a better place in ourselves and we're high value in ourselves, that is only what we're going to attract back into our lives. It's when we aren't doing the work, when we just say, I can't do this, or we keep beating ourselves up with that internal story of you're no good, you're this, you're that, then you separate yourself of what's to come in your future. So I think it's so important to, you know, hear information like this and to work with people like ourselves. So we are coming to the end. I just wanted to make sure with the tips, what we were going to say, with, you know, we've spoken about it a number of times, but if we were to look at some of the tips, if we think we're being hijacked, sort of emotionally hijacked, those signs are literally, I mean, Helen, you said, what would you say is emotionally hijacked? How does somebody know if they're being emotionally hijacked?
For me, it's one of the if you're quite seriously emotionally hijacked, it's normally that you have a bodily response that is perhaps very disproportionate to the problem. So it could be the smallest thing. For example, just to give you a very simple example, you know, you might not be very good around dogs, and you see this tiny little dog, and you get this raging, you know, you're just freaking out, and you're like, why am I freaking out? That dog's tiny. That's a disproportionate reaction. I mean, that's just on quite a surface level thing, but you know, people have these reactions to dogs. Of course they do. So yeah, I mean, that's how I would define a hijack.
I remember when I had panic attacks and I got on the tube, and I remember there was a lot of things going on, and I got on the tube and literally some man put his arm across my arm, like my face, and I was like, I can't breathe, all the oxygen on the train's been drained out, I can't breathe, how am I going to do this? And luckily I'd learned a technique from, you know, how we'd studied at Regent's University, and I'd used the technique on the train. I was like, no, and I was just focusing on the technique, and it helped me, but I was thinking, I'm not going to be able to breathe, which of course I'm going to be able to breathe. So I think, as you say, when emotions take over, Amy, would you agree? It's like when you're, you know, being emotionally hijacked.
Yeah, for me, it's when you lose the thinking part of it, because it overrides the thinking part of it. So when I go straight into self-protection and my body's just feeling stuff and I'm not thinking, there's no thinking response. When I react as opposed to respond to something, then for me, I know I'm in that space then.
So that's good. So people get a rough idea. We've three of us have said something slightly different in slightly different ways, but it's the same thing, to be honest. So that's brilliant. So people can hear this. And then tips, what would we say? You know, how can people help themselves when they feel they've been emotionally hijacked? So they've got an understanding now, a clear understanding of emotional hijacked, how it works, or what's going on for them. What tips would we give people now? I know we've said it during this whole thing, but what would we highlight now as we're towards the end? What would we say to people? How would you help yourself?
I think for me in the moment, it's that 6 seconds, like just asking in that moment, is this really true? Is this really true? Is this what I'm thinking it is? And asking again, is it really true? Is it really true? But for me, it's that literally slow down, because everything's going really, really quick. It's like slow down, ground and slow down. Give yourself those seconds for your thinking to start kicking in a little bit.
I think you're right. It is those 6 seconds, because it says that, doesn't it, with the brain and thing. But for me, I need to breathe.
I was going to say breathe.
Yeah, because I realized,
get back into your body. Get back into your body.
Because I hold my breath, right?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Oh my God, I think it's quite normal. And then, so when I know that I'm checking in with myself, I know, I studied as a mindful practitioner, and we were looking at our bodies, and our body responds a lot. So I was like, when I'm ever like in the top part of my chest, I'm like, okay, I know there's something that's not quite right, and I know this is triggering me. So I try to start focusing on my breath. And sometimes what I do is I place my hand, on my heart, and I'll feel into my heartbeat, or I'll do my pulse, because sometimes if it's too much, I feel like I can't breathe, I'll just put my fingers on my pulse, and I'll go right, and I breathe into my pulse gently, and breathing the breath down through my body. A lung specialist taught me a couple of years ago about breathing it all the way down to the lower diaphragm, and that will help the oxygen levels, that will help with the physical side of the chemicals going off to the brain. and you know, we know it's the 6 seconds, whatever. So I think that's that breathe, that pause, take a moment. And I also sort of check in, what's it showing me right now, what's going on, what's happening. I try to sort of look at it, and then I might go for a walk, you know, take myself away from the situation. That might help.
Yeah, not be reactive to it at the time.
Yeah,
100%.
I think grounding and reminding yourself. For me, it helps to have reminders. So I have reminders on my phone.
Do you?
That they kind of pop up and I can look at them in a difficult situation. Because in a difficult situation, when I'm reacting, it's hard to sometimes have that logical kind of space. I write things down on my phone as reminders for when I need them. And for me, one of them is, your emotions aren't fact.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I mean, I couldn't read at that particular time. For me, I can't, because I'm dyslexic, and I just find I'll just jump all over the place because I'm so like, ugh. But if I go for a walk and I put, you know, my earphones on and listen to some music, that helps me often as well. What helps you, Helen?
Well, it's funny you should say that, actually, because I had a few things coming up recently, and having just studied EMDR, the principles are, when you're walking, you're stimulating both sides of the brain. So actually doing anything, like processing anything whilst you're walking, is actually a really good thing to do. So I often find that I will walk and I will either just be conscious that I'm walking, or you can also slowly balance it on each side. But just sort of going back to stuff Amy was saying, just the positive self-talk sometimes. I'm safe, all is well, it's okay, you know, and you know, it may be slightly papering over the cracks of something else that needs dealing with on a subconscious level, but at that time you just want to get yourself to a balanced state where you're back in your body and you're back in your, you know, consciousness again, really, if you've been completely sideswiped.
I think you're right, because it's not, you don't want to deal with it when you're firefighting. You don't want to respond really, you need to take some time. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
Important.
I think it helps to name the feeling as well, just in the moment, to be able to just name it. I'm afraid.
Yes.
I'm afraid. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what we did with the mindfulness thing. It was about feeling to those feelings so that you're aware of what those feelings are. Because people for so long might have been telling you, programming you, saying what that feeling is, and you don't actually understand. And you're like, oh, this is it. I'm scared. Or someone, don't be so silly, you can't be scared. Well, you can just say, I'm actually scared. This is what's going on for me right now.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I do, well, Anne and I have both trained in EFT. Mine's a lot lighter weight than Anne's training, but I often will do EFT tapping on an emotion like that. I am scared, I feel like shit, I'm angry, whatever it is. And I always find it shifts something. And I think even if you don't know EFT, for me, like I say, if there's an immediate hijack, people have laughed at me. My friends who know me and know that I've kind of studied this stuff, I've been caught on an aeroplane doing this before, literally, which is one of the tapping points.
Yeah.
And people, and they're like, hey, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. But, you know, if there's a bit of turbulence, and it's just one tapping point, and whether it's doing anything or not doesn't matter. There's something within it that makes me feel like, you know, I'm just getting back into my body. And
it's that freedom technique, as you say. It's like, because we're wired up with the acupuncture points and all the meridian lines in our bodies, by just doing that area, they're also triggered and attached to other points within your body, which we don't, you know all of the information about. But that again, you know, when I was training in it, I was like, wow, it's so interesting. You could just do one point. You don't have to do the whole circuit. Yeah. It's that you just can do one point, because it's,
for me, that one's great, because you can do it. I mean, I do it sometimes if I'm driving, if you're on the bus, whatever. I mean, you know, even now and then someone might, what the hell is she doing? But generally, if you're just having a little thought process, you don't give a shit, you know, it's just like, hey, it's just helping me.
But I think that's the thing. I think it's about finding your techniques, what suit you. And I do that with all my clients. There's so many different techniques I use that we use. It's what suits you. It's what going to work for you, not for me as a therapist. It's about what you need for yourself. Okay.
Yeah, I echo that. Like, one of mine is, I have a little tattoo of a heart. So I just sit there and I rub that. I'll be like, okay.
That's become an anchor for you.
Yeah. So it connects me to love.
Yeah, isn't that divine? Oh, let's all get hand tattoos.
I'm not advocating that. Just saying, it's not my fault.
Disclaimer.
I love that.
I love that idea.
So brilliant. Well, ladies, it's been, well, shall I say, fellow soul sisters, it's been lovely having this conversation with you today. I know how important it's going to be for some people out there to hear this. And I know for future, we're going to look at running some courses and classes and workshops for many others, men, women, whoever you are. Doesn't make any difference to me. The odd alien, if you want to come and whatever.
Yeah.
Everyone's welcome. So, you know, we're going to be running some workshops and courses together later on, and individually too as well. So if there's anybody out there that are interested in having a session or looking at communicating with any of us, all the information will be left in the bottom part, and so that you can connect with us, and we can get back to you and see. So and for today, I'd like to say thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Well, I'm sure that people will see many more of us, and other topics we'll be covering, all the taboo subjects as well. So there's so much to look forward to.
I love it.
Right. I wish you farewell, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.